Let's switch gears and discuss the dark spectrum of mental illnesses such as sadism, pedophilia, and necrophilia. How did humanity acquire these anomalies? These distortions have different roots, and it's not fair to group them together. While deviations from healthy behavior can be considered illnesses, the history of humanity includes many behavioral norms now seen as repugnant by modern standards. There has never been a universal healthy norm in humanity. We have evolved from basic animalistic expressions to highly advanced behavioral standards, with each culture and generation establishing its own moral code. From my perspective, any behavior that infringes on the free will and evolution of a being, be it animal or human, is unfavorable and will lead to negative consequences for the perpetrator. The rest is a matter of subjective societal norms. Necrophilia, for example, doesn't affect the free will of a living being. It becomes a grave act, warranting karmic interference only if the perpetrator kills a living person to satisfy their urges. If the act is performed on an already deceased body, the issue is more unethical by modern standards than a crime per se. In many cultures and historical phases, necrophilia was viewed as normal and accepted. Modern Western understandings of death and traditions surrounding corpse care have led to the condemnation and criminalization of necrophilia. This view is a collective societal decision. My opinion is that such behavior stems from someone deeply wounded, incapable of healing either by denying the depth of their hurt or by creating a subconscious block to authentic human consciousness. Regarding sexual acts with the deceased, it's important to understand that in humans, sexual activity is meant not only for procreation, but also for creating a special type of intertwined energy when two pranas merge. Prana, being life energy, exists only as long as the body and prana are connected. After death, there is no prana in the body. Engaging in intercourse with a corpse thus signifies a purely animalistic release of sexual desire, often stemming from unhealed wounds like rejection by the living or inability to let go of a loved one who has passed away. The most disturbing form of necrophilia involves those who kill to then engage in acts with the corpse. This behavior can be traced back to the residual influence of the reptilian race, where such actions were normalized. However, such tendencies are diminishing as humanity evolves. Pedophilia, on the other hand, has been a common behavior since the inception of humanity. Driven by the lowest energies in the body, it's used to dominate and satisfy sexual needs, often targeting the weakest and most vulnerable. The high sexual charge in males, meant for procreation, has backfired, making males more prone to predatory behavior. Unfortunately, children remain the most abused population, and often victims become abusers themselves, perpetuating heavy generational karma. There is no justification for such abuse, and it remains a serious issue in modern society, with sexual enslavement and human trafficking being major concerns. This is a significant burden on humanity's collective energy, hindering its harvestability for higher dimensions due to contamination and corruption. There are laws against pedophilia, yet powerful figures in society often support and participate in shady sex trafficking operations. This hypocrisy contrasts with the openness of historical figures like Caesar about their sexual preferences. Do you see such behavior as an illness or more as a form of corruption? Both aspects are relevant. Healing cannot occur if the issue is not exposed, and exposure is difficult because of the corruption involved. Modern power players and the justice system work to keep these issues under wraps. There's a global cover-up in place regarding sexual predators who invent new methods to silently abuse victims and their families. Healing can begin when victims break this silence by speaking up, a brave act supported by universal forces for the global healing and evolution of humanity. Victims should not fear retaliation, but stand by their truth, be vocal, and refuse to accept blame that belongs to the predators. Only then can humanity have the chance to grow and heal from these unhealed traumas, which are as damaging as the events that caused them. Do you see sadism as a result of unhealed trauma as well? All mental disorders relate to unhealed traumas, often more psychological than physical. Sadism, typically perceived as deriving pleasure from physically hurting others, actually has a broader spectrum. Emotional sadists are more prevalent than physical or sexual sadists and often cause more damage. Originating with the Marquis de Sade, the term sadism is now well known and even somewhat romanticized in recent erotic literature. It didn't start with de Sade, obviously. When did it actually begin and why? Sadism has existed since the dawn of humanity. In evolutionary terms, pleasure was initially derived from satisfying basic needs like hunger, and the killing of another being was associated with the pleasure of eating. The distinction between preying on animals and humans was blurred. Interstellar community intervention discouraged cannibalism, crucial for human survival. Genetic memory still links individual pleasure with the pain of others. Another reason for sadism's persistence is the release of enormous energy when a being is hurt, designed as a life force protection. This energy release affects those around, and if harnessed by the abuser, can lead to a euphoric high in energy transfer from the victim to the sadist. Long-term, this can result in the abuser adopting the victim's life energy and developing multiple personality disorder, especially true in cases of deliberate life-taking. Sadists are often aware of this energy transfusion, and the act of inflicting pain often goes beyond physical or sexual abuse. Sadism often crosses into cannibalism, either through physical consumption or energetical essence absorption. Many victims' bodies are never found, indicating the extent of these practices. Earlier civilizations, including Atlantis, exhibited more severe distortions. When self-preservation becomes predatory, a balance must be maintained within the individual and societal structures. Consider cannibalism, which might horrify you, but isn't far removed from eating a steak, the flesh of another being. The lack of compassion for the life and death of the cow contrasts sharply with the pleasure derived from eating. If you witness the life and brutal death of the animal, you might reconsider eating meat. The problem is the disconnection. Meat appears pre-packaged, without context. Similarly, for a sadist or cannibal, a victim is just a means to satisfy their needs. This mindset isn't far from those who consume meat without thought. True evolution involves finding the consumption of any living being repulsive. Acknowledge this, process it through your heart, and honestly ask, is this who I want to be? Why do humans choose to hurt themselves? Self-harming practices seem like they could be considered a mental illness. Self-harm is often a manifestation of how a person has been treated by others, stored as an unconscious compulsion in their energetic body. Additionally, there's an addictive element. When tissue is damaged, chemicals are released for repair, and some individuals become addicted to these chemicals. Trauma is usually at the core of self-destructive behavior. Evil often runs in families, propagating and corrupting new generations with inherited toxic grooming techniques. Victims, usually exposed to evil too early to recognize it, grow up in a harmful environment. Remember, harm directed at others is also directed at oneself. Anyone capable of hurting others likely harbors a great deal of self-loathing, redirected away from themselves. So to stop self-harming behaviors, one must start loving themselves? Yes. Connecting with the unlimited loving energy within and around oneself negates the impulse to harm. Often we become our own enemies, perpetuating the harmful legacy of our abusers. The antidote to evil is love, beginning with self-love and extending to others, including pets and nature. Activating a loving energy field through meditation and focus is effective, incompatible with hurt or abuse. Bipolar and borderline disorders, what are they? Should they be classified as mental illnesses? They are modern times inventions. From the higher self standpoint, they're nothing but the expression of the modern energy shared by everyone at this time. You all have it to some extent, and therefore imaginary treatment of the imaginary illness only benefits greed. Food choices and lifestyle create inconsistencies in the human energy field, mood, and overall well-being. There is a lack of self-regulation. This is a basis for bipolar disorder. What goes up must come down. Borderline disorder is just a different name for narcissism and psychopathy. You can get all nitty-gritty about how it manifests itself differently in different people. The core is the same as its root cause, the tendency of separating the mind and the heart and blockages within the energy flow, We'll continue creating personality disorders and a variety of mental illnesses as you choose to label them. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.